Welcome to Heartspeak Podcast, episode 120, Dreaming the Reality Awake. I so enjoyed meeting so many of you last week in the podcast, in the interactive live podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And I heard so much good feedback where you'd had the chance to talk to people all over the world. And that's what we should be doing. We need to be talking together, singing together, dancing together. And although I'm doing this via Zoom and many of us are working on Zoom, we need to come back to a time where we're actually feeling the energy through the physical form. And I hope that time will come. Because when I see people dancing and singing and acting together, there's an energy that spreads between us that can't always be expressed just over the internet. Although I'm very grateful for it carrying my message now. It's time for us to find a language of connection, of unity, of peace, of abundance for everybody. And that's how it was, as I understand, hundreds of thousands of years ago, when we all spoke a common language. And that language, I believe, didn't come out of our mouths, it came out of our hearts, it came out of our third eye, it came out of our energy field, because there was nothing that we hid from. I allowed you to see me as I see you. And while we're hiding and we have secrets, we can never go back to those times. Or let's say go forward to those times. Let's find a new language of authenticity, a new language of transparency. And recognize that when we do that, or the more we do that, we recognize that what I do unto you, I do unto myself. That my thoughts, my actions, my words that I may express to you are also the ones I'm expressing to myself. So that we can no longer hurt each other with our words or our thoughts or actions, because that will hurt us. This is one of the laws of the universe. It's the law of recognizing what we do to others and we do to ourselves. And that's the law of karma. When we take from someone else something that doesn't belong to us, it will rebound on us. These laws aren't just a punishment, they're just the way the universe works. And so I want us to understand that we move into a very different world now. That's why I called it Dreaming Our Reality Awake. And recently I was hearing someone talk about how we are the dream of Mother Earth, of Gaia. And I just loved that idea, that she's not just having one dream. Like when I go to bed at night, I may have several dreams. Or my dreams, as in my imagination, it's almost like, well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. I'm sure many of you have those sorts of ideas. So what if we're the dream of many faces of Mother Earth, or we are the dreams of Gaia? And that if we are the dreams, then we can also make the choice which dream we wish to live in. And it feels to me that knowing that to be true, and I've tried to offer you different ways of looking at this, there is a part of us that says, no, this is the world, this is what it looks like, the sky is blue, the sun shines. What if that's just a reality or a dream that we've all got caught up in? And you might say, well, you're now really crazy because of course the sky is blue. Well, is it? Is it in every dream of Gaia, Mother Earth? Does she have every sky as blue? And if we don't even go to that extent, is there a reality or a dream of Gaia where the world is, or the planet itself is destroyed? Is there one where it's abundant? Is there one where there's peace? What if there are many different versions? And what we need to choose is which version we wish to live in. Now, I know I've expressed this before, but I just felt I'm going to come back and express it again, because I want us to understand that we have choice. You've heard me say that before. We have free will, and we're not using it. So if on every breath you made a new choice, or Forget making even a new choice. What if on every breath you just remembered that you had choice? And maybe every breath is too much for you, maybe too much for me. Maybe every morning when I get out of bed, that I say, wow, this is a new day. I have the choice of how I'm going to live through this day. Because it's not necessarily changing the world, it's changing the way I choose to live in it. And as adults, we've got stuck in the belief that there is only one way. And I'm sure many of you maybe go through days, even weeks, even months, even years, where you say, no, this is the way it is. Don't listen to Christine, nothing can change. But I know that you've had days when you've changed. I know you've even had moments when you've changed, when you've made the decision to go into maybe a store, a shop, and especially during these times where we're wearing masks, but you've said, no, I'm not going to let this mask stop me shining, stop me glowing, stop me talking to people. And I found that that's what happens, that there's this energy of glow that happens. You know, after my podcast last week, I was so full of talking with you all. Of course, talking with you anyway excites me. But I had that energy of connection in my body, in my aura. And I went down to my favorite coffee shop and we all had our masks on, etc., etc. But all of a sudden, someone heard my accent and said, where do you come from? And then someone else on another table said, oh, I've been there. Oh, suddenly I'm having conversations with all the people in this outdoor cafe. That's the only way we can actually go. But we were loving the conversation and our eyes were shining. And yes, we did take our masks off to drink our coffees. And it was so rich. And I thought, I'm carrying that energy because I just had the experience of speaking with you all. So that when we change our energy field, the world around us changes. If you haven't tried this, next time you do go shopping or you're going to do something, you can go in grumpy, and then the next time you can go in happy and see what the difference is. It's up to us. How we choose to live in the world makes a choice by how we see the world. And it's that level that I want to speak about. And I have spent, as many of you know, most of my life teaching a course called Courage to Change. How do we change who we are? And how difficult it is to change, that sometimes only a crisis changes us. But sometimes when people get sick, and of course I've worked around that a lot of my life, it's almost the impetus to make a choice, to make a change in our lives. Maybe somewhere someone dies that you love in your life, or you go through a divorce. But of course, many a time we just pack everything up, the same old stuff that we had, and we move from one house to the next, or we move from one relationship to the next, and we wonder why, like, wow, why does this always happen to me? Because that's what you believe. So you keep marrying the same sort of person, or you keep going through the same situations, and you feel the world is doing this to you. Of course, it's not. It's not that degree of fate. It literally is, the fate is coming from within us. What am I expressing that's causing this to happen? You've heard me say this. And brings to mind a lovely old lady, and I'll say she was lovely, but she went through a very miserable time. And I was her doctor then. And she had lost her husband very sadly. And because of losing him and feeling that the world was against her because of that, and again, she was in grief, I fully understand that. But days, weeks, years went on, and she couldn't get out of that depression. And she had a lovely family, and she had grandchildren, great-grandchildren now. And she just kept saying, no, the world is terrible, the world is terrible, I can't love, I can't be loved, I can't hug. And eventually she got so depressed that we had to send her into a hospital because we were worried about her mental health and whether she'd hurt herself. She wasn't eating, she wasn't looking after herself. And she told me the story about a month later when she'd come out of the hospital. She said that every day the hospital caused her, said, this is what you need to do as part of your routine, which was to walk along a corridor where there was a very big mirror and go to the room where she was to do arts and crafts. And she did this several days. And then one day, as she was walking past this big mirror, she looked in the mirror and she said, "Who is that miserable old lady?" And she saw it was herself. And she said, "Wow, I wouldn't want to meet that miserable old lady as my grandchildren." And from that moment, she changed. That moment, she went back to her bed. She ate her lunch for the first time. She started to smarten herself up. She had a wash and she bathed herself. She was out of the hospital very quickly. And she came to see me and she was surrounded by this very loving family. She had one child, I think a great-grandchild, in her arms. And she was just telling me this story. And about a month later, she actually died with a heart attack. And please don't get sad, because I know she had received what she needed, which was to feel loved, to be loved, and to realize that love is all around if we just open our hearts. She didn't need to stay. She went to be with her husband, which was fantastic. And I have many stories like that where a change of mood changes how we feel, maybe how we physically feel. And sometimes it's not easy. I'm not in any way saying you can just switch. But there are times where we meet angels in our life that help us. I have a friend who had some babies, or twins, and was wondering how she was going to cope with the two other children she had at home. She was a very young mother. And she thought, how on earth am I going to cope? I really don't feel I'm able to do this. And she developed this really strange paralysis, and she couldn't get out of bed. And the nurses kept saying, you know, you've got twins. You need to get up and go and feed these babies that are in the nursery. And she said, oh, I can't do it. Look, I can't move my legs. And it was many years ago, and they didn't have such sophisticated tests, but they did all the tests. Couldn't find anything wrong with her. And then one day she walks into the nursery to say, okay, where's my babies? I'm going to feed them. And the nurses were just astounded, like, where do you come from? Why are you here? I thought you were paralyzed. And she said, no, that young doctor came in and he was so rude to me, but he said, get out of bed and go and feed those babies. And she said she immediately jumped out of bed, really shocked by this young doctor's attitude. But she came and fed the babies, and nothing wrong with her legs. And the nurses said, there's not been a doctor on the ward yet. There's nobody here. And I believe that's what happens to us. We see these angels, we see these beings of light, these loved ones who come in and say, I love you so much, I'm going to be mean to you, like this young doctor. I'm going to show you a new story. Has that ever happened to you? I've had so many opportunities, and I'm very blessed of teachers. And some of you may know this story that I'm about to share. In fact, a couple of stories from, again, my work as a doctor. One was a young baby that was only 22 weeks old, and I was the doctor, the only doctor on call that night, and I was only very young. And I was the pediatric doctor, and this mother gave birth very early at 22 weeks. And in those days, we really didn't know whether a baby of that age would survive. So I ran over, put a tube down through its tiny little vocal cords, and we managed to get the baby to breathe. And the baby managed to pull the tube out. And I was called back again, and I went back and I put the little tube down again. This time I didn't leave the ward, I just watched. And the baby pulled the tube out again. I put the tube back down. This time we even tied its little arms, and we weren't being particularly restricted, but we said, okay, we've got to stop this baby doing this. And the baby managed to get this tiniest of fingers up and just pulled the tube out. And the baby said, this time I couldn't get the tube down because the vocal cords went into spasm, the larynx went into spasm. And the baby died. And I heard immediately the soul of this baby say to me, never believe that you have control over someone's life or their time of death. I am a mighty soul. I've come to teach you this. And ever after, I realized that I will never see what I consider a baby, 22-week baby, or an elderly person as someone who is frail or vulnerable, or that I will patronize them with my belief system. I realize that everyone is a soul. Everybody has choice. And that choice needs to be one that I can only do my very best with anybody. That's all I can do. And I've seen that in the elderly, someone who we considered may die, but just one thing said to her by her nephew, she came all the way round, and again saying to me, don't you ever consider me old just because, or unable to make my own decisions because I'm old. And I really remembered that. And there was another story which ties in with this, was seeing a young girl die from a stray bullet that she was out hunting with her family, and this bullet just, the boy dropped the gun, the bullet went off, the bullet hit her aorta, she died. And I realized that I was very sad. She was a young girl, she was beautiful, and her life was just went in an instant. But again, I was witnessing of that. That bullet could have moved one way or other. And in my work, and any of you have worked in ER and seen violence, there are times where a bullet will absolutely hit where someone cannot survive. And there are times where a bullet or a knife will miss everything and the person is meant to survive. And it's got nothing to do with me or God even. It's in some way a choice that soul is making at that moment. And I say that because I'm saying that sometimes we feel that we can change someone's outcome. I don't believe we can. I believe that we're just there to do, again, the very best we can, support someone in their journey and honor the soul that lives within them to know the right path and not to judge. In other words, say, I don't know why you're having that experience, but soul, if I can help, let me know. That's the approach I take. And so all these different ways I'm speaking about, I'm talking about different choices that the soul has made, not me, the soul is making. And the ability to move between choices is probably one of the hardest things for us to do, because we get stuck. As I say, this is the way it is, this is the way my life has to go, can't change. And it reminds me of working with children who have had past lives. Children between around the age of 2, when they can start to talk, to about the age of 8, are the very common times children having past life memories. And I worked with a number of them who were very small, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they would tell you a very detailed story with, we were doing this is what we said, this is how I felt. It was as if you were there with them. And then they often died at the end of the story, and then things went boom, and you knew that something had blown up. And you went, wow, as an adult, you went, wow. And they went, yeah, it happened. And off they went to play. And I met many children who could tell these stories, many of which, as I said, ended in death. But the death was not the main feature of the story. It was they wanted to share their knowingness of a parallel life. They wanted to know me to know that they still could remember that particular dream, that particular reality. And they told it in so much detail that it couldn't be forgotten. And that type of experience, I think, is so rich for us, that when we understand those stories. So what about us? Where do we get stuck? We get stuck because we say, I can't change from here. This is how it is. And unfortunately, as I've spoken about belief systems, that can often be the way. Deepak Chopra tells a story about a woman who he helped to clear her cancer. And he said, there, off you go and have a good life. And she said, yes, but the cancer may come back. And of course it did, because her belief was it would come back. And I often met people who would show me all the vitamins they were taking. And I'd say, why are you taking this? In case the cancer comes back. I said, don't do that. Never take anything because you have a fear of something. Never do a test because you have a fear of something. Do it because it enhances who you are. I'm taking these because it makes me feel so good. I'm taking this test because I just love myself. And that can be true where we're looking at the vaccines, we're looking at the tests that are going on. If we go in with a belief that, yes, there's a lot of people going in with a belief that this is going to cure me. That's not a bad belief, even though the vaccine isn't necessarily going to do that. But it may well give us a different perspective on life. And what we're seeing is there are many things happening. I'm just going to put this in with this vaccine at the moment. Someone mentioned the AstraZeneca one last time. It is a different type of vaccine. It is from a chimpanzee virus. But there are issues already because of it coming from another virus. People are having effects. But I'm just saying that is a different type from the messenger RNA. And yes, the messenger RNA viruses are asking our body to make a protein within the muscle of our arm. And then that protein will then be seen by our body as a problem. We're supposed to develop antibodies against that. But there's something much deeper going on. And I've also just read about, and I'd heard this before, how we're going to be able to give ourselves our own vaccines because there's going to be a Band-Aid, a plaster, and underneath that will have little spikes. And so when you push the plaster onto your arm, you'll be giving yourself your vaccine. That is being developed in many parts of the world now. But behind that, there was this idea of a nanotechnology where not only would you be giving yourself this vaccine, you would also be presenting into your body a way of recording how that vaccine is influencing you. What's it doing to your body? So I just want to push this idea out. Do not think that these vaccines or what's happening is all about a one-way story. It's also allowing ourselves to be monitored. And I think we're going to hear more about that as we go through. But as I'm talking about changing our beliefs, I'm also talking about changing our physiology. And so there was the story I've mentioned before of taking a group of people who were 70 years old, took them back 20 years, sent them into a house where everything was 20 years earlier. And these people were told, live as if you are 20 years younger. And so for 2 weeks, they lived as if it was 20 years earlier. Newspapers, televisions, etc. And within 3 days, their physiology changed, or indeed started to change, to what it was like when they were 50 years old, not 70. And by the end of the experiment, 2 weeks later, their physiology had changed dramatically. And then they took another group of people who were 70, put them into, again, a house, sent them to a house. But this time they said, just remember what it was like. So using your mind or your memory, and nothing changed. So what we know that if we are going to change our physiology, we have to change it at the level of our how do I feel. That belief system that's not in the head, but it's in that memory that's in our cells, but is not in our head. That's the way I'm wanting to say it. So some of you may feel that already yourself. I've never seen myself as an age. Is that true for some of you? I've never thought, oh, I'm this age or that age. I still look down at my body and go, oh, now we're doing this age. But I don't call myself that age. Now, I've not had children, and I think it does change when you've had children because there's a sort of aging process because you're saying, here are my children, here are my grandchildren, etc. So I'm not suggesting that many of you who have got children are not also feeling like I am, but there's nobody for me to be referenced against. Does that make sense? So I'm not living in the world where I'm being told I have to act a certain age. And someone said to me recently, oh yes, as you get older, your body gets tireder. And I thought, not my body. It's fitter than it was when I was 20 years earlier. So I actually quite like being older. But I am saying is it's when we start to say, how do I want to live and to be different, that we change our world. So if you say, I want a peaceful world, live as if it's a peaceful world. And what does that mean? Not just peace. I mean, it could be peace, but define that, please. If you want to see it as a luscious a world, then see or imagine in your mind or see coming out of you the juiciness of fruits or the trees abundant. What does it mean for you? So whatever the world you want to live in, don't just give it a word. Harmony, peace, really go into it. How do you want to feel when you're in that world? And what does that world look like? What colors? What sensations? Use your bodily sensations as a way of defining what that world's going to be like. And don't focus on, I'm going to make it like that. You're saying it's already here. So don't work too hard at this. If you work too hard or try too hard, you're actually putting too much effort in. Live as if you're already there. And this is really important at this time, as so much is going on in our astrology. And I'm throwing all these bits in as I go along, because today, as I'm doing this podcast, we have Mars and Uranus conjunct, a very active time. Lots is going on today, but hopefully nothing too upsetting, because that's about Uranus can be very upsetting, disturbing. Mars can be very aggressive, but it can also be very passionate. And I feel passionate about changing the way my body works, my physiology of my body. So just to recognize that physiology, how it all comes together. Your cells are not set in stone. They are changing all the time. That's why gene therapy works. So making choices, how do you wish to feel? So this is the next few days. We've got Mars and Uranus coming together, and then we have Jupiter and Mars square to each other. And you just want to be careful not to go overboard. That's all I can say about Mars and Jupiter, because it's really, you can get a little overwhelmed or trying to do too much. So just be gentle with yourself. So don't go too wild. But remember that everything can change. Everything is possible, and especially within our body and the world of nature around us. And so I'm wanting, before we finish, we're going to do a meditation of how you want to feel, which is really important to us. The greatest place of change is the throat chakra. It's the place where we use thyroxine to really bring about change. And it is the thyroxine in a tadpole that makes the tadpole a frog. If you take out the thyroxine from the tadpole, it can't change. If you give it too much thyroxine, it becomes a little frog and it can't survive. So I want us to understand that throat chakra is about being open, being available. And just for us all to keep reminding ourselves that when we keep saying, but how, or it won't work for me, or you don't understand, this is the way it is, the throat chakra is blocking the dream. So being innocent, being curious, being open, being adventurous, allowing that Mars and Jupiter to come together in an adventurous way, that your body can change in whatever way it wants to. And I remember a time where I was working with Kirlian photography, or type of Kirlian photography, which is where someone reads your aura, or it reads your energy field. And on that day, I was having a very heavy period. I was very tired. But I decided I would just bring my energy into balance. And I did that just before I went into having the test done on me. And the person said, wow, your body is so imbalanced today. You've got lots of energy. And I realized that I had changed the way my body felt by just relaxing, you could say being more mindful, but also just putting myself into a state of steadiness. And what I'd done was really imagined myself as something. In this way, I see myself as this Buddha character, just really calm. At other times, I'll imagine myself in a different format. And that imagination isn't just just staying in my head. It's I believe that I'm there. So that if I'm in a place where I feel I need to have a little bit more strength, I may be walking through a slightly dangerous place in the world, I'll imagine myself as this wonderful, strong Native American. And I'll feel myself walking along as a Native American. One time when I was in Rhodes, which is one of the islands in Greece, I was walking up this cobbled street, and almost immediately you could say, shape-shifted into being a Knights Templar. And I really didn't know much about Rhodes at that time, but it was where the Knights Templar hospital, the people who worked with the hospital were, the hospitalers. And I was in this form, as I was walking up the street, I was very bothered. And I was bothered because something wasn't going the way I thought it should. I felt we were losing touch with our principles. And it almost felt that I could see, as I walked up this street, the people in the shops were of that time. They weren't of the modern time. And I got to the top of the street and I looked around and I heard a child cry, and I immediately was back into the 20th century that time. I'm sure you've had moments like that, where you have literally found yourself shifting. There was one other time where there was a teacher who I really admired. It was a male teacher, and he was being treated with much more respect than I was when I was on the speaking tours. And I knew I was being maybe seen as a woman, a young woman, whatever it was. So what I did was saying, what would this person do in this situation? How would they act? And immediately I knew the answer. When I took on this format, this persona, I acted in a different way. I have to say, I said, no, I need a hotel to stay in, or I need this, which I'd never have done if I stayed as this young girl that I was at that time. So what I'm suggesting to you is to find an archetype, find a character, someone who you admire. Now, you can have many characters. They may be animals. They may be my hospitaler Templar, my Knights Templar. They may be this teacher. But we all have within us this sort of memory of strength, of courage, of compassion, of whatever it is you're looking for, peace, happiness. It can, as I say, be in animals. Often I'll use or suggest people imagine they're a lion going through a jungle, or maybe you're a parrot, or maybe you're an owl. But imagine yourself as something that gives you the qualities of that animal. So what I'm saying is, you say, what are the qualities? What are the three things by which I describe this person, this animal, this archetype? And you embody those qualities. And when you do, your physiology changes. How's that for you, that idea? So we're about to do a meditation. I just want to finish the story of being on the island of Rhodes. I didn't realize that when I was much younger, I realized this, but when I was much younger, I joined what we call St. John's Ambulance. And St. John's Ambulance is a voluntary organization in Britain that goes to different events to bring first aid. And from the age of 11 to 18, I wore this uniform, this black and white uniform. It wasn't until I was in the island of Rhodes and became this hospital Templar that I realized that when I was 11, I took on that uniform again, because that's where the St. John's Ambulance came from, was these people who had lived hundreds of years before. So what are you living? What have you embodied that is so natural to you, that makes you feel, yes, I know that part of me. I know that well. Does that make sense? That sense of being someone who could help others was something very strong in me. Okay, so I'm going to keep it simple for the meditation. I'm going to just work with the principle of, how do you want to feel in a situation? Now, it may be at home, it may be at work, it may just be in your personal life. What are the qualities you want to feel? I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel beautiful. I want to feel happy. I want to feel strong. I want to feel excited. So you can, as I say, imagine someone who has those qualities, or an animal that represents those qualities, or you can just go with me in the meditation and we'll see how we get on. All right? So only if you're in the right space for this, please close your eyes. As always, take a short breath in and a long out breath down through your body. Settle into your body, really important. This is the vessel of change. This is the alchemical vessel of change, our body and its senses. If your mind wanders, gently bring yourself back into your body, into your feet, into wherever it is you're sitting or lying. Relax. Stay in your body. And now, above your head, imagine that I am sprinkling angel dust. And in this angel dust is whatever it is that you want to feel. Peace, happiness, adventure, courage, lovable, sexy, whatever it is. This angel dust carries this. And it's now pouring down over your body, and your body and all the cells are absorbing it. You see it falling down to the ground, surrounding you. Your body, your cells, your DNA, your aura, all resonate with this one truth. I am peaceful, I am beautiful, I am lovable, I am strong, whatever it is. And now we're just going to work up from the feet, knowing you are whatever, you are experiencing the gift of this angel dust. How would you stand? And if you want at this moment, you can stand, if you're able. How do you feel in your legs? How do you feel in your feet? Knowing you are, again, whatever it is you've asked for. How do you feel in your body? And how do you hold your body, your back, your pelvis? Change your posture now to express this feeling. How do you breathe, knowing that you are full of this angel dust? How do you breathe, expressing this particular quality? And let your shoulders, your neck express these qualities. If you need, move them until they're there, until they are right. And your arms and your hands, move them, stretch them, whatever you need to express this quality now. And again, just go back to your spine, your breathing. Just check everything in your body from the neck down is expressing this quality. And you can move into your bloodstream, your heart, your lymph, your nervous system, your DNA. Almost like saying, wake up, this is what we're doing now. Now move up to your face. And nobody's looking. How does your face express this quality now? If you want, you can open your eyes. If you can stay in the meditation, allow your face to express this. Now imagine a mirror in front of you, a large mirror. Look at yourself. Are you expressing this quality? What does this look like? What does it feel like? What part of your body needs to really know this is true? Just place your hand on that part of your body. It can be on your heart. But is there a part of your body that's like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to change? Place your hand there. Anchor this new energy in. And finally, see yourself out in the world. It can be with your family, it can be with your partner, it can be with work colleagues, it can be in front of an audience. Imagine you're there now and you are holding this energy. Feel your energy radiate out from your physical physiology, your energetic physiology. I am. Now, to slowly draw your energy back into the room where you are. Just know that as soon as you take the first step away from this meditation, whatever you do, you are saying, I step fully into this knowingness, that this is the dream I wish to awaken into reality. This is how I am already living my life from now on. And with that, I wish you a good week. Sending love and blessings to you all now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and now playing on iHeart Radio. You can also watch the archive podcasts on YouTube. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, including her newest Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.